good at a brew, baby? What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Millsy, back with Hometown Commander. We are back for another episode of Millsy Brews, the show where I review my version 1.0 deck list of the Commander in front of us on my quest to outbrew the Magic world. We're sticking with our 2023 end of year celebration. We did two other decks this week that were old decks that we revisited, but today we're doing one I have yet to brew and one I've been wanting to brew for a long time. And that is Rin and Seri, Inseparable. We'll get into the deck, we'll get into the commander, but as always, that deck list is going to be down in the description if you're interested. Rin and Seri is a 4-mana dog cat 4/4. So whenever we cast a dog spell, we make a 1/1 cat. And whenever we cast a cat spell, we make a 1/1 dog. And for Naya, red, green, white, we can tap it and it deals damage for any target equal to the number of dogs we control and gain life equal to the number of cats we control. Rin and Seri is a fun commander because it pays us off for playing dogs and for paying cats. Now, I'll be upfront, there are a lot more cat creatures printed than dogs at the moment. And that's okay because the one creature type we get to really take advantage of is changelings or shapeshifters. And we'll talk about that in a second. But let's go over what we're going to try to do. Flood the board with creatures. We're going to use some of our small +1/+1 counter in combat, vigilance and trample type strategies to win the game that way. But we want to just flood the board, buff them up as much as we can with our abilities, do some combat, and use Rin to kind of start threatening our opponents in instant speed and dealing a bunch of damage and gaining some life back. Of course, Rin and Seri are no slouch themselves in combat, being a 4/4, and their bolts, so any abilities they're going to buff one type or the other is going to buff them as well. But again, we want to get Rin and Seri down as soon as we can, start casting spells to get tokens of the opposite types, and build that board state and start dealing damage. Now, the good part about Rin and Seri's ability is because there's more cat creatures cards that are printed in our game than dogs, it means we're going to be getting a bunch of dogs, which is going to allow us ping our opponents for more damage that way, because of course when we cast the cat spell, we're getting dogs. We do have some dog spells, and that'll give us some cat tokens as well. But again, I think because we have more cat spells, we should end up with more dogs, meaning we can hopefully output more damage to our opponents with Rin and Seri. Okay, well, we'll get into the cats eventually because some of the cats and dogs are really important. Let's talk about our shapeshifters because a lot of them are going to be sense once we talk about what they are. So all our shapeshifters have changeling, meaning this card is every creature type at all times. So that means that when we cast them with Rin and Seri out, it's going to fulfill both of its first abilities, meaning we're going to get a cat and a dog token when we cast them. And that's really important because that makes our board even wider and gets us more of these creature downs. And we're playing as many of them we could that make sense. Avian Changeling, 2/2 for 3 with flying. Bloodline Pretender, when it comes in, we choose creature type. And whenever another creature of that type enters the battlefield under our control, we put a counter on it. This is going to be pretty easy. We just pick either cat or dog, It obviously probably cat more than dog, but it wouldn't matter either way. It's still going to get a ton of counters and be useful to us. Imposter of the Sixth Pride, just a 2-mana 3/1 with changeling. Regular Cohort, pretty fun. Whenever it enters the battlefield, we make another 2/2 with changeling. I wish Rin and Seri was on ETB. It's on cast, but still that allows us again to have these creatures that are both types for both effects, which allows us to again still buff them up with all of our abilities. Mass Vandal. Whenever it ETBs, you may exile a creature from our graveyard. If we do, we destroy target artifact or enchantment opponent controls. Mirror Entity, being both and for X until end of turn creatures we control on base power and toughness XX and gain all creature types, which is pretty darn cool because of some of the buffs we have. That's going to allow our dogs to get those buffs and become even bigger as well. Tarian Mauler, which is a changeling. Whenever our opponent casts a spell, we put a counter on it, but it does count as both a cat and a dog. Universal Automaton, a 1-mana 1/1 that counts as both. And then Woodland Changing, a 2-mana 2/2. So again, lots of these, they're going to allow us to count for both, get more counters, or get more tokens that way, and allow us to build a wider board state. Okay, well, we talked about our changeling. Let's talk about our really important cats and dogs that we're looking to see. First up, one of my favorite commanders I have built, and a card that's going to help us no matter how many cats or dogs we have in the battlefield, except only a number, is Jetmir, Nexus of Rebels, a legendary cat that says when we have 3 or more creatures, all of our creatures get +1/+1 vigilance. When we have 6 or more creatures, all of our creatures get trample, and if we have 9 or more creatures, all of our creatures get double strike. Jet Mirror is going to end the game probably in its own right. It's going to make us very hard to deal with in combat and help us really start just running down the hallways and beating people up per game. I love Jet Mirror, and it's a perfect deck and a card in a deck like this because it's just going to help bolster our strategy and what we're already trying to do. Ginny Fae, though, now it looks like a really fun time, and that's because Ginny Fae isn't a cat or dog herself, but she's a really important ability. If we would create 1 or more tokens, we can instead create that many 2/2 green cat tokens with haste or 3/1 dog tokens with vigilance. Where I think Ginny Fae really helps in this deck is, remember, Rin and Seri is only making 1/1 tokens. Both of Ginny Fae's ability are strictly better than what Rin and Seri is making, which means that we can make better tokens. Now, the other cool part about this is if Ren and Seri is making a dog token, for example, we really want a cat token, Ginny Fae can make that instead, or vice versa. But again, making the tokens bigger, especially those cats getting haste, can be beneficial depending on what our board state is and how we have things working. Kahira is going to give +1/+1 counter, +1/+1 in vigilance to all of our cats, which is still important, allowing them to attack and block. We are playing 2 of the new cats from Lost Caverns of Ixalan, Kutzel, Malamet Exemplar, which says opponents can't cast spells during our turn, and whenever 1 or more creatures we control with power greater than its base power deals damage to a player, we draw a card. There's lots of buffs in our deck to buff our creatures, so it's going to be easier for us to do that. And then Sovereign, Akanek now, how whenever it attacks for each creature we control with power greater than that creature's base power, put that many +1/+1 counters on it. That's going to help a lot to get our creatures bigger and start hitting harder in combat. I know most of those are cats, but we do have a couple pretty cool dogs. Selfless Savior can sacrifice itself to give another creature indestructible. Potentially there will be able to protect Ren and Seri from getting destroyed. Pack Leader says other dogs get +1/+1, and whenever it attacks, we prevent all combat damage will be dealt this turn to dogs you control. That's pretty cool because then they can attack hopefully for basically free, and Mirror Entity works pretty well with that. Loyal Warhound, when it enters the battlefield, if opponent controls more lands than us, we go to get a basic plains, which is at least something. And then Isamaru is a 1-mana 2/2. That's a pretty great stat line for a 1-mana creature, and of course that is a dog, so that's pretty darn helpful. Okay, so there's some great cats, and believe me, there's a lot of great creatures in this deck. I also forgot Realm Walker in that Changeling section as well. But anyway, there's a bunch of the creatures that we really care about. Again, a lot of them. We're also playing something like probably the Steel Legion to buff all of our creature tokens as long as it's our turn, which is pretty cool. But let's talk about hitting harder. Let's talk about what are the cards that we put in the deck to help us hit our opponents harder in combat. Coat of Arms just feels perfect for this deck. I don't like putting this in every Go Wide tribal deck that I have, but I love this card. And it's better here because more often than not, all of our creatures are going to get a pretty big buff from this, and they're going to make them harder to deal with in combat. We also have something like Beastmaster Ascension to give all of our creatures that buff as soon as we make it at least attack with at least 7 creatures to put 7 quest counters on it, and then our board becomes even harder to deal with. Intangible Virtue is going to get all of our tokens +1/+1 in vigilance, allowing them to attack and block. Mirari's Wake, flat +1/+1 to everything, and allows our lands to tap for double the mana. Shared Animosity, giving all of our creatures +1/+0 for each attacking creature that shares a type with it, which is going to give us a pretty good buff. And that I really like because we could potentially hit someone pretty hard out of nowhere. And then Virtual Loyalty, giving all of our creatures a counter at the end of each turn and untapping them, giving them not only vigilance but a good buff for attacking. We're also playing Maskwood Nexus as a way to take advantage of these shared animosity type effects. So what creatures you control are every creature type. The same is true for creatures you own and creature cards you own that aren't in the battlefield. This is going to allow every card we play to activate both sides of Ren and Seri's ability, giving us more creatures, more counters, and more things. And I just think that works out better overall. It makes Ren and Seri hit for more damage, gain us more life of its ability, get more creatures on the battlefield. I think it just overall does everything we want it to do anyway. And I really like that ability. And then we are playing something like Patriarch Seal to untap our Rin and Seri to do it again, as long as we have enough mana. There's a lot more in there. There's a lot more we can talk about, but as I've talked before in a lot of this other new series of Millsy Brews videos, when we build deck, there's always cards that we want to put in and just didn't make the cut. And I wanted to talk about a couple cards that I really wanted to put in that I would very quickly consider in testing when it came to this deck. The first is Garruk's Uprising. I still think there's a good excuse for a Trample Enabler, and Garruk's Uprising is a great one, considering how we do have a couple cats that should draw us cards off of this when they come in. And once we get enough buffing effects down, every cat or dog coming in should allow us to draw off of this, giving our whole board trampled and making them hit harder in combat. Same thing with something like Overwhelming Stampede, a pretty cheap Anthem effect, +X to each creature and trample until end of turn, where X is the greatest power among creatures we control, allowing us to hit harder. And then I thought about something like Descendant's Path. Just got that reprint in the Lost Cavern decks. Whenever, beginning of our upkeep, reveal the top card of our library. If it shares a creature type with a creature we control, we can cast without paying its mana cost. If we don't, put it on the bottom. Of course, if we have Rin and Seri out, this is always going to activate. Otherwise, there's a pretty statistically likely chance we're always going to have something that shares a type of something coming off the top, and that would allow us to get some good value off of something like Descendant's Path. But there's the ID cards I thought we would consider. Let's run into a playtest or two. Opening hand gives us 2 lands and a pack leader we can't cast. We do have a good amount of lands in the deck, but I think we're going to go ahead and take our free mulligan here and see what happens. We mull into a 2-lander with access to all of our colors. Idle Oblivion on 2. I don't mind this one. We got a good way to get up there. Let's get the Jungle Shrine in tapped because we can't use it turn 1. Turn 2, we draw basic plains, which is great. I would think we would just get down our Idle Oblivion here. It comes in... we can draw cards as long as we made a token this turn, which is pretty cool. Turn 3, we put down that Bountiful Promenade, so we're up to 3 mana. We can put down Kutzil, we can put down the Feline Sovereign, we can put down the Realm Walker. A lot of great options. I think I'll just put down Kutzil here for the purpose of getting a creature on board. Turn 4, we miss that land for Rin and Seri. But we do have Beast Within and Chaos Warp now for some great removal. I think we get the Realm Walker down. In this case, I'm seeing a lot more cats in my hand, so I'm just going to call cats for the type. Look at the top card. We can cast Screechy Bells of this whole type from the top, and we reveal a Woodland Changeling, which is a cat. And I would probably try to swing with that Kutzil if I can. This turn, reveal the top, seeing a King of the Pride, which buffs all of our cats, and that can allow us to draw more cards with Kutzil. So I think I would probably... Well, let's think about this. We also have access to that Feline Sovereign buffing all of our cats. And whenever they deal damage, we can destroy something. So that may be the better call here. Try to get in with Kutzil and Realm Walker. Try to destroy some Soul Rings or Mana Rocks or whatever people have, potentially, if they can get through. Next turn, we see the Virtual top. Man, we were just missing this last land. I guess we'll get King of the Pride down, buff our cats up, and try to start attacking in. Let's say we hit with at least one of them to draw a card here. We'll go one more turn. Still no 4th land. Oh my gosh. I guess we'll get the Changeling and the Selfless Savior down. It kind of stinks that we missed that 4th land here, but again, we'll just keep going, trying to hit our opponents, try to draw cards off the Kutzil until we get into the next land. But let's go one more time. 2-lander with Cinderglade. Don't love this one as much. Let's give it another go. 2-lander. This one feels a little bit better. We're still missing the white, but I think we can make this one work. And there we go. We got the white off the first draw. Let's get down the Spire Garden. We don't have anything to do turn 1, but we do, we see the Heroic Intervention. We see the Intangible Virtue, Fleecemane line. I think we have a good start here. Turn 2, we'll get down that Wooded Bastion. And I think we play the Fleecemane line, a 3/3 cat. As long as it's monstrous, has Hexproof, Indestructible, make it monstrous for 5 mana. Turn 3, we get down the Firelit Thicket, or just 1 mana off of our Rin and Seri. I think I would put down Realm Walker here, calling cats. We look at the top and see a land, which is perfect. Turn 4, we put that Promenade down, and we play Rin and Seri, so now we have access to those tokens. We get to still look at the top, and it's another land, which we absolutely don't mind. Next turn, we play the Plains. We see a Beast Within on top, and I think we'll go ahead and put down... A Johnny could buff our whole board, which would be pretty cool. We could put down the Virtue and the Beastmaster Ascension to start buffing things up, which is what I think I would do. Maybe take an attack this turn, put a counter on Beastmaster Ascension, draw for the next turn. We see a Flawless Maneuver on top. maybe here's where we get the virtual loyalty down to start getting some love onto our board. And we'll go one more turn. Broker's Hide on a dot. Really missing some dog and cat spells, but now we have great protection in our hand. I'd probably just start swinging some more, hitting our opponents for some damage. But kind of some awkward play tests, but sometimes I really feel like Moxfield can be off. So this would be something where maybe we would take another shot at seeing where our ramp was. I felt like we did a good amount of ramp in the deck, but I guess not. But anyway, let me know what you think of Rin and Seri down in the comment section below. I'd love to talk with you about it, and I will catch you guys next time.